let's talk about motherboard stuff.
What is the main function of a motherboard?
It acts as a foundation of the PC, distributing power, connecting CPU and RAM, expansion slots and ports, and managing the data flow through the chipsets. What are the traces on a motherboard? Copper pathways on a PCB that connects components and transfer signal. PCB stands for printed circuit boards. Why do motherboards use layered PCBs? To reduce the interference, shorten the trace of distance, and increase the signal speed and strength. What is the size of a standard ATX motherboard? That is 12 inches to 9.6 inches. 12 to 9.6 inches. What is the size of a micro ATX motherboard? That is 9.6 to 9.6, which is a perfect square. What is the size of a mini ITX motherboard? Okay, so what is the size of a mini ITX motherboard? That would be 6.6 to 6.6 inches.
That is a very small form factor,
Very popular in small form factor. And what does ITX stand for? That stands for Information Technology Extended. And what does ATX stand for? ATX stands for Advanced Technology Extended. Which motherboard form factor is most common today? The ATX. Everyone uses an ATX. What is the main advantage of a micro ATX? It is smaller size, still compatible with the ATX cases. What is the main cause of a mini ITX? Main use. What is the main use of a mini ITX boards? This is a small form factor, and the PC and home theater PCs, such as the HT PCs. What is proprietary form? What is the proprietary form factors? What are proprietary form factors? These are motherboards that are designed with These are motherboards designs that are unique to the OEM, and e.g. would be the Dell, the HP, and the restricted upgrades. These restrict upgrades. What is the function of the chipset? It manages CPU, communication with RAM, peripherals, and expansion slots. What companies dominate modern chipset manufacturing? This would be AMD and Intel and AMD. What features are often integrated into modern chipsets? It's things such as USB, SATA, RAID, networking, and audio. What does SATA stand for? Yes, it stands for Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. What does USB stand for? Universal Serial Bus, correct. What does RAID stand for? RAID stands for Redundant Array of Independent Disks. Redundant Array of Independent Disks. What was the role of the North Bridge in older systems? These would manage communication between the CPU, the RAM, and the GPU. What does GPU stand for? Graphically? No, not graphically. Graphics Processing Unit. Graphic Processing Unit. What was the role of the South Bridge in older systems? Manage peripherals such as USB, storage, and audio. What replaced the North Bridge in the modern systems? The CPU, Integrated Memory Controller. What replaced the South Bridge? Modern chipset integrated into motherboards. What is the difference between PCI and PCIe? Let's start with what does PCI and what does PCIe stand for? PCI stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect, and PCIe stands for Peripheral Component Interconnect Express. And this is peripheral control component interconnect is parallel with the shared bandwidth, and PCIe is the serial with the dedicated lanes. Is a serial with dedicated lanes. Okay, so what are the common PCI bus speeds? This would be 32-bit or 32-bit to 32 hertz megahertz, and the 32-bit to 62 megahertz. What does PCIe use instead of a shared bandwidth? Point-to-point serial connection with dedicated lanes. Point-to-point serial connection with dedicated lanes. What is a typical slot used for GPUs? What is the typical slot used for GPUs? PCIe X times 16. What are the PCIe version speed, GT per second? What does GT per second stand for? Is it gigahertz? It's giga transfer per second. Giga transfer per second. And that would be the 1.x is equal to 2.5 comma. Okay, this is how you read this. X 1.x is equal to 2.5, and 2.x would be equal to 5.3x. 5.3. No, 5, sorry. Yeah. 2, 2, x is equal to 5. 3, x is equal to 8. 4.0 is equal to 16. Get it? Those are the giga transfers per second. And then we come to what are the standoffs in motherboard installations? Metal spaces that mount the board to the case and prevent shots. What connects to the front panel header? That would be the power, which is the reset buttons, and the HDD. What does HDD stand for? Hard disk drive. The LEDs. What does LED stand for? LED stands for light emitting diode, something like that. What connects the front panel header? Oh, we already did this. What tools check for motherboard post failures? What tools check for motherboard POST failures? The POST. What does POST stand for? That stands for power on self-test, and the power on self-test card or the motherboard beeps code. That is the tool that checks if the motherboard post fails. Okay, in the device manager, what does a yellow exclamation mark mean? It means that the driver or the configuration has an issue, like there's a problem. In the device manager, what does a down arrow mean? It means that the device is disabled. What should you check if the PC won't boot after the motherboard installation? You should check if there's proper standoff placement, the CPU or the RAM are sitting, or the PSU. What does PSU stand for? Power supply unit. The PSU connections are good. What should you do if the USB ports don't work? What does USB stand for? Universal Serial Bus. Okay, good. What you should do is you should check the BIOS. What does BIOS stand for? basic input-output system. You should check the BIOS settings and update the chipset drivers. What are the common causes of intermittent crashes? What are the common causes of intermittent crashes? Overheating, CPU, chipset, or the faulty in RAM. What is the main risk of missing or extra standoffs? They can shoot the motherboard and prevent a boot. Why are drivers important for motherboards? They enable full functionality of chipset features like USB, SATA, and networking. What does SATA stand for again? That stands for Serial Attachment Technology Attachment. Serial Advanced Technology Attachment. That's what it stands for. And networking. Which form factors is best for a full-sized desktop? Yes, that would be the ATX. What does ATX stand for again? Advanced Technology Attachment Extension. It stands for Advanced Technology Extended. Which form factor is best for budget or mid-tower PCs? Micro ATX. Which form factor is based for SFF and HTC PC? Okay, what does that stand for? What does SFF stand for? And what does HTPCs stand for? SFF stands for small form factor. And what does HTPC stand for? It stands for home theater personal computers. Home theater personal computers. Wait. Okay, so it turns out the form factor that is best for SFF and HTPC would be the Mini ITX shop.